judges are ready. Okay, let's begin. So, opponents ready, judges ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Honorable Judge, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly hold that patents should be issued for life-saving medicines. First, definition. Patents, according to Collins Dictionary, is a document granting the exclusive right to produce, sell, or get profit from an invention process for a specific number of years. Issue, also according to Collins Dictionary, is to print, publish, or give out publicly and officially. Framework. We have two theories and numerous facts demonstrating why patents should be issued for life-saving medicines. Once we prove one to be valid, we win this debate. Contention 1. Patents are necessary to protect the pharmaceutical industry. Subpoint A. Pharmaceutical companies cannot survive without drug patents. Inventing life-saving medicines and bringing them to market are not cheap. According to Yevgeny Feynman, a fellow at Manhattan Institute, the capitalized cost of bringing a typical drug to market is around $1.2 billion and continues to grow every year. This cost is slated to keep going, especially for new, highly targeted medicines for diseases ranging from cancer to type 2 diabetes. Much of the cost of inventing new drugs is fixed. The sunk costs cover the gamut of everything from machinery to rent to regulatory costs. Thus, the only way we overcome the large sunk cost of a product is granting companies a temporary monopoly. However, according to IMS MIDAS, the pharmaceutical industry is still suffering because patent expiration up to 2016 will reduce brain spending in worldwide developed markets by $127 billion. If drug industry is not profitable, investors will stop investing in pharmaceutical companies. This situation will affect many who need drugs. Subpoint B. Patent protection promotes drugs companies to invent new drugs. According to BION, without patent protection, 60% of the drugs existed now would not be invented. From 1976 to 1978, 81 new drugs were invented in Japan. However, before Japan government passed laws on drug patents, there were only 10 new drugs invented. Subpoint C. A healthy pharmaceutical industry is good for the economy. According to Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, a major contributor to the U.S. economy, the biopharmaceutical sector generates high-quality jobs and powers economic output for the U.S. economy, serving as the foundation upon which one of the United States' most dynamic innovation and business ecosystem is built. According to the Bataille Technology Practice, these economic impacts are driven by the industry's research and development, which are known as R&D enterprises. The U.S. biopharmaceutical sector accounts for the single largest share of all U.S. business R&D, representing 23.4% of all domestic R&D found by U.S. business in 2013, according to data from the National Science Foundation. If patents are not issued, drug companies will be harmed and so will the U.S. economy. Contention 2. The connection between patent protection and the rise in drug price is weak. Subpoint A. Without patent protection, access to existing drugs in developed countries would not increase. According to Frank Lindenberg, a Columbia Business School research associate, and Drew Vlos, the research associate in Paris School of Economics, weakening patent protection would not increase Americans' access to existing drugs. However, it would undoubtedly reduce the number of new drugs developed. Lindenberg and Drew Vlos' study do not find any evidence that patent protection reduced the utilization of drugs. This is because the demand of drugs are not sensitive to the price of drugs. Besides, companies that own the patents to medicines use monopolies' profit not only to finance research and development, but also to pay for the marketing of these medicines once they have been approved. If there is not enough marketing, the utilization of newly invented drugs in developed countries would remain the same. Subpoint B. Without patent protection, access to existing drugs in developing countries would not increase also. According to Dr. Harvey Blake, the Director General of the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, drug companies in India has already started to massively produce and sell generic ACT drugs, which are used to cure AIDS. However, if drug patent is what makes people in developing countries such as India unable to afford drugs, Indian people should have been able to get more access to generic drugs. Nevertheless, such is not the case. In developing countries in India, in Africa and Asia, people still have few access to existing generic drugs. For all these reasons aforementioned, we urge con ballot. Thank you.
Dear judges, the resolution for today's debate is patents should not be issued for life-saving medicine. As pro side, we firmly believe that life-saving medicine should be made as inexpensively accessible as possible in order that those desperately in need are not forced to risk, or in some cases, sacrifice their lives when battling against life-threatening disease. Our framework for the resolution is application of utilitarianism, which means the core concept of utilitarianism, the greatest good for the majority, is the ultimate factor that decides whether or not a policy or social action is appropriate enough to be retained. In this way, patents should not be issued for life-saving medicines. Here are some words that pro side would like to clarify. By definition, a patent is a document granting an inventor the exclusive right to make, use, or sell an invention for a specified period. Slides illustrate the present demand of the medicine. People are counting on the medicine to stay alive. Now the pro side will present you the reasons why patents should not be issued for life-saving medicines. Contention 1. Patents on life-saving medicines set limitations on accessibility to those desperately in need. As mentioned in the pro side's definition, patents issued for life-saving medicine only grant production and disclosure rights to the organization or company that invented the life-saving remedy in the first place. It is usually typical of whoever invented the medicine to charge rather skyrocketing prices on consumers of their creation in order to earn back their initial investments. Take the case of Mahmoud, a patient with liver cancer in Egypt as an example. Mahmoud is an ordinary shopkeeper who earns less than $300 per month from his business. In order to battle against cancer and stay alive, Mahmoud has no choice but to carry a heavy financial burden of $115 per day, which is nearly half of his monthly salary. How are patients like Mahmoud able to withstand such overwhelming pressure? Patents not only block out the possibilities for mass production of the life-saving medicine with the boundary of disclosure policies, but also block out the hope for survival of countless patients. By connecting back to our framework, the limitation of life-saving medicine's accessibility set by patents become a barricade that prevents the achievement of the greatest good for the majority of the population that suffers from critical conditions. It can therefore be concluded that patents on life-saving medicines hinder the establishment of a utilitarian society and should not be issued in order to satisfy the medical needs of those struggling between life and death. Contention 2. Patents on life-saving medicine are very likely to become potential causes of discrimination concerning the quality and reliability of those medicines. Patients would hold natural proclivity to feel more confident and secure about purchasing patented life-saving medicines. However, patients often neglect or are reluctant to believe domestic medicines invented and manufactured by trustworthy and responsible pharmaceutical companies can serve to save their lives from critical diseases just as well. Indeed, most patients who live on meager income, especially those in developing countries, face the following dilemma. They're depressed by the highly expensive prices of the patented life-saving drugs. Then, as they look to the domestically produced alternatives that are offered at more affordable prices, they are deeply troubled by hesitation because they are unsure whether or not their once-and-for-all investment in those life-saving medicines will really be their salvation. Yusuf Hamid, the chairman of good reputation pharmaceutical company Cipla, contends that both indigenous people and the USSDA and the European Medicine Agency cast distrust on Indian generic medical products. Well, actually, these products are of good quality and affordable. Here, the pro side highlights that patent on life-saving medicine has all the potential it needs to make patients from illusionary and unnecessary distrust toward medicines that could have served their lives. Thus, this sense of hesitation and doubt caused by such patents actually prevents the society from achieving what could have been a utilitarian outcome where this life-saving medicine satisfies the urgent needs of the greatest majority possible for patients. Contention 3. Patents cannot motivate innovation in practice. A very obvious example of this is happening all around the globe. According to Food and Drug Administration, since the late 1980s, the patent duration and scope have been increased steadily worldwide. Despite this, an increase in the research and developing spending. The money of totally new drugs that reached the US market slid from around 45 per year in the late 1990s to only 30 last year. Moreover, scientific reviews of new drugs released between 1996 and 2006 show that very few of the new drugs represented therapeutic innovation. Most were no better than existing products or were actually inferior. Also, the evergreen method used to make the patents last longer by making useless changes in the drug cannot make development in life-saving drugs research, but further burden the patients can I finish my next? And further burden patients, as our first contention mentioned. And all in all, we as pro side strongly holds that patents should not be issued for life-saving medicines. Thank you.
Does the other team want to take preparation time for crosswalk?
30 seconds.
Okay. While she's taking preparation time, can I quickly remind the audience to remain quiet, just to be respectful to the speakers, and also to silence or turn off any mobile phones or other electronic devices, please?
Okay, start. So first I want to ask you that you mentioned that patents will sacrifice lives in your first contention, right?
What?
Patents protections would sacrifice lives.
No, we're saying that patent protection leads to the increased price of the life-saving drugs, so people cannot afford the life-saving drugs, so they would die.
So you did mention that the high price of medicines would sacrifice lives, and I want you to provide the specific number of people dying because of patents protection.
No, this is obviously common sense. As we mentioned in our example about Mammoth, he's not dying, but he's not dead, but he is dying because he cannot afford the drug. And I want to ask you a question. So why do you think with patents the price wouldn't increase?
Oh, you mean that? We didn't say that with patents the price won't increase. Actually, we say because of patents protection, the price will increase the company's profit. And also, I would like to say, it is very interesting that you say according to common sense. I think this is public forum debate, and we need to provide specific data and evidence to prove, to back up our intentions. And if you cannot provide specific
Yeah, I
number of
said
people
I
dying,
provide an example about the Mammoth case because he's not dead for now, but he might be dead in the future because of the expensive price of the life-saving drugs. And also, my partner will respond to this later in her rebuttal. Also, I want you to clarify your example in your first contention, subpoint C. Your first contention, subpoint C.
you want me to?
Clarify the example?
Oh, okay. So in subpoint C, we said that a healthy pharmaceutical industry is good for the economy because it can provide a large amount of high-quality jobs and powers economic output of the U.S.
Yeah, I'm
economy.
asking about the example.
You're asking about what?
The example. Do you prove
My partner will provide the exact chart and the exact number that the job increase in her rebuttal speech.
Okay, so what does exclusive right mean, zero?
And I think it's my turn to answer the question.
Could you please answer my question first? Could you repeat that? Okay, so what does the exclusive rights means?
The exclusive rights means that the company who owns the pharmaceutical patents for that medicine can have the right to determine the price during that year, the period of time.
So you're saying that the government is not doing nothing about this, right?
I didn't say a single word of that. I'm saying that the company who has that right.
So you're saying the company is the only one who can decide how much money?
Companies is the main factors in deciding the price of the drugs.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you both for that crossfire. Would you like to take preparation time? No? Then I'd like to recall.
Just ready, opponents ready? 3, 2, 1, go. So I'm going to rebut my opponent's contention one by one. First of all, they mentioned about that patent protection make life-saving medication inaccessible to those who need it the most. Well, however, I'm still saying that they're actually using a very obvious fallacy, which is a strawman fallacy, and criticizing pharmaceutical company for not doing enough. And I want to mention about Yale University is they're actually attempting to make a potential anti-HIV drug available in developing nations. But the institution is still finding itself questioned for not doing enough. The university plans to help out AIDS patients by patenting its product to provide legal protection and making the patent publicly available in several poor countries. Yale is receiving about $30 million a year from licensing Xerit. Under pressure from Doctors Without Borders in 2001, they have to begin selling the generic form of Xerit for much lower pricing in the developing world. However, Mark Krogo, Associate Vice Chancellor for Economic Development at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and former President of the Association of University Technology Managers, said that universities are trying to find new ways of licensing their drugs to companies. Institutions want to ensure that they can earn profit from their patents while also providing access to technology in developing countries. So I think it's completely wrong for our opponents to use a strawman fallacy and criticizing pharmaceutical companies for not doing enough. And second of all, I would like to again to strengthen our argument, which is that our opponents mentioned that a specific example, which is Mohammed, a man from Egypt. However, first of all, I want to point out there's actually a mistake in their example. Well, we can see that this case is actually from a release by Bloomberg Business named Life-Saving Medicine High Cost and an Intractable Patent Puzzle. And I would like to say here that Mohammed is actually the one who's suffering by patent protection. His father is. And nevertheless, more importantly, is that our opponents need to give us specific data and direct evidence to prove that there are people, and a large amount of people, dying because of patent protections. As this is a forum debate, this requires us to use numerous data and evidence to back up our contentions. Besides, I also want to address on the social benefits of patent protection. So, our opponent asked us to explain how patent protection can help the U.S. economy. And as we have already mentioned in our contracted speech, and I would like to further strengthen it, here is a chart of the different sectors contributing to the American economy. And the green line here showing that is the largest contributor to U.S. economy is biopharmaceutical industry. And besides, biopharmaceutical industry are providing 810,000 jobs opportunity, and in total contributing $3.4 million to U.S. economy. So here I explain how pharmaceutical industry is important to economy.
I'm sorry, aren't you supposed to show us?
Sorry, please don't sorry me. Let me finish. And so if patent protection is eliminated, those pharmaceutical industry will not be able to provide social benefits, for example, like contributing to economy and creating jobs, opportunities. So that's why we think that we should definitely issue patent protections. And besides, our opponents using one single case, only one man out of 7 billion people in the world trying to prove their contention, which I understand is completely invalid because there's only one simple case. And those are all of my rebuttal speech. Thank you.
Thanks for that speech. Just to clarify the position on references in a debate, you don't need to show references to the judge or the audience. If your opponent requests to see a reference, you can show it to them, and judges can also request to see references. You should be showing them to the judges without being asked to. Okay.
We ask the pro side request our opponents to show us the charts, please.
Yes, so time to look at references counts as preparation time. So, yes, that's fine. So she shows it to you. Okay, so just show that.
Are you ready now? And start. So, dear judge, here's our rebuttal. Firstly, our opponent says that without the patents, pharmaceutical companies cannot survive. We hold firm that even though there is no patent, the survival of the pharmaceutical companies will not be influenced. Firstly, the patented life-saving drugs is not the main source of the pharmaceutical company's income. Mostly, the business depends on generic drugs or not life-saving drugs. Also, we believe that it is the social situation's obligation to subsidize the companies, since not only the companies is helped and their effort is rewarded, but also the patients would not have to afford the price burdens. Secondly, our opponent says that there is no increase in the price of life-saving drugs. And here is our example to prove that it is the patent that leads to the price increase. A pharmaceutical company called Novartis used to charge $2,500 for the cancer drugs of Gleevec as the generic version drugs with no patent, and increased by more than 10 times to $26,000 after it was issued patent. This happened in India, which is a developing country. Also, to respond to the questions, the common side as in the crossfire. Firstly, in 2002, after the Thai government's pharmaceutical organization started to produce generic antiviral drugs, which is a drug that could only be produced by the patented manufacturer in Thailand in the past. The cost of monthly treatment per person dropped from $700 to only $30, and the number of the patients able to afford the treatment increased by 89%. So more people are getting access to the drugs which can save their lives. Also, Turing Pharmaceuticals raised the price of a drug called Daraprim, which is used by AIDS patients from $30.5 to $705. Even though this event turns out to be an okay resolution, that is, these companies agreed to cut the price down. The price of these drugs is still far high enough than before, and making them inaccessible to 33% more patients. Since our definition of the life-saving drugs point out that life-saving drugs are one of the most important issues for patients to survive. So actually, if they cannot get access to these life-saving drugs, their life will be threatened. Secondly, I'd like to say that to support our contention about discrimination. Since there's a discrimination survived exists in this pharmaceutical market leads by the patent that the patients would choose those will be misguided by those patented drugs, since they are misguided that the quality of these patented drugs is higher. But actually, the truth is that the generic drugs also have that kind of quality, and the price is even lower. So this will lead to the monopoly in the market, which is very unfair for the market, and also very unfair for the patients because they cannot get the right drugs and with the suitable price that they can afford it, since there is a discrimination exists that misguide the patients. And I'd like to respond about the Mohammed case. Well, I think since his family name is Mohammed, so does his father, right? So this is not a problem. And fourthly, about our opponent's point about the economics, since they do not have the framework, so we take our framework as the framework for our value, that it should be the it should be the majority's. It should the last sentence. It should be the majority's rights and their lives to be safe that matters to our case, to our round today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that speech. Leaders, team want to take any preparation time? No? I'd like to invite you to begin the next crossfire.
Okay, so before I start, I want to just out that we do have a framework, and I think it's proof that our product completely show no respect to patients to our speech.
Well, maybe you're speak too fast, so I didn't catch your framework. So can you restate that?
Okay, so just Danny, open this ready.
No, it's just the framework.
We have two series, and here's fact demonstrating why the trend each rise and what's
Can you speak slower? Can you speak slower?
Do I have to? Okay, I'll speak. We have two series and numerous facts demonstrating why patents should be issued for life-saving medicines. Once we prove one to be valid, we win this debate.
Okay. So my question is, what is your source for the fact?
I think, okay, so you want to go. I think it's actually me to ask the first question because it's first. And my first question for you is that you have mentioned about a suitable price, and what kind of price you consider that is suitable for people in developing countries?
Affordable.
And by affordable, how can you define affordable?
Well,
By exact, but the exact.
as you see that our statistics shows that some people that are getting access to, when people are getting access to the drugs, then it is affordable.
When people are getting access to drugs?
Sure.
Well, getting access means that drugs are available, but drugs are always on the market. They are always available for people.
Well, what I mean by by they are getting access to the drugs is that they can buy it, so it is affordable, which means suitable
So
price.
by exact how much money is affordable, I would like to point out that since you are the one who brought up the conception of
I
affordable.
think this doesn't matter because if they have the money, they can buy it, then
Well,
this is
I
affordable.
would like to say that the affordable price is actually very important in this debate because I would like to give us a case, which is that you have also mentioned about Novartis, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, spent approximately $866 billion inventing and developing new drugs. However, only 21 kinds of new drugs are successfully invented and went public. So, which means that each drug costs $4 billion on average. So, do you mean that by eliminating patent protections, the money used to research and develop will
I'm not saying
lower?
that because I think it should be the government or the
So could you
institutions
explain why
obligations to subsidize them, as I mentioned in the rebuttal. It should be other institution or the government to subsidize them.
So could you give us any specific example of government or other institution sponsoring for institution or pharmaceutical companies to invent new drugs?
We are talking about whether we should or not. So I don't have to give that example.
So if we should-
I'd like to point out that if we can help this government or some kinds of institution to help that in a harmful way, because if we have the patent in order to protect the rights of the companies, it will harm the people since it will be unacceptable for the patients, which is the
And
which
I
is the
would like to
majority.
address again.
You're out of time.
Okay,
Thank you.
can I finish my last sentence?
You can cut off during your sentence. Okay, would you like to take preparation time from summary speeches?
I want 1 minute.
Okay.
So, okay, opponents ready, judges ready. Okay, 3, 2, 1, start. Now I'm going to give my summary speech and summarize all the points into this debate. Firstly, our opponents repeatedly emphasized that patents increase the price of life-saving medicines. However, they did not provide any statistic data or specific evidence to show us that there is actually a link between issuing patents and the increasing price of drugs. Besides, we did not mention single of a word that price would not increase after patents were issued. And secondly, they said people can get more access to drugs as long as patents are eliminated. But according to what we mentioned in our constructive speech, no matter in developed countries or developing countries, without patent protections, access to existing drugs would not increase, with specific data and specific evidence. And thirdly, our opponents are trying to build a strawman fallacy. They are trying to make an assumption that pharmaceutical companies are only want to gain profits from patent protections, and it is important to do so. And however, I would like to point out that the social benefits of patent protection and pharmaceutical companies, as what we mentioned in our constructive speech, a major contributor to the U.S. economy, the biopharmaceutical sector generates high-quality jobs and powers economic output for the U.S. economy. Once there is no patent protection, it would harm the pharmaceutical industry and also the U.S. economy. Also, my partner in the rebuttal speech has clearly shown that there is a chart, and there is 801 million of jobs provided by the biopharmaceutical industry. And now we'll strengthen our contentions. We both agree that innovation is very important. However, if there is no patent protection, and I have clearly mentioned in my constructive speech that if the drug industry is not profitable, the investors will stop investing in pharmaceutical companies, and this situation will affect many who need drugs. As I said so, if there is no investor, there is no profits gained from the patent protection, companies are not allowed to provide because they have not enough money to innovate. So according to all these reasons mentioned above, I think our points are still valid. Thank you.
How long would you wish?
Judges ready, opponents ready. Dear judge and opponents, now I'm going to provide a brief roadmap for the judge and demonstrate why we win this round by successfully proven application of utilitarianism, which means the core concept of utilitarianism, the greatest good for the majority, is the ultimate factor that decides whether or not a policy or social action is appropriate enough to be retained. Thus, patents should not be issued for life-saving medicines. Firstly, patents on life-saving medicines set limitation on its accessibility to those desperately in need. As for our example about shopkeeper Mahmoud, whether it is for himself or his father, it's a very sad fact that people are dying and they had to spend half their monthly salary on one pill per day. How can they survive? They're not saying that these people are not dying. They're saying that these people are not dying, but from our perspective, spending half monthly salary per day is actually bankrupting and dying. And this leads to our second contention. Patents on life-saving medicine are very likely to become potential causes of discrimination concerning the quality and reliability of those medicines. Patients often neglect or are reluctant to believe that domestic medicines can serve to save their lives from critical diseases just as well. Patents cannot motivate innovation in practice. With an increase in research and development spending, the number of total new drugs that reached the U.S. market leaped from 45 per year in the late 1990s to 30 last year. This is exactly the period that people becoming more serious about patents. This statistics obviously shows that patents do not stimulate innovation. As our opponents mentioned about the chart, as I see in the chart, it is about the biopharmaceutical companies and biotransition drugs. And from our perspective, we don't consider this kind of drugs life-saving drugs. Additionally, as our opponent mentioned in their constructive speech, because the great spending on the drugs, they can earn money back. Can I finish my last sentence? So where does the money come from? It comes from poor people who has to pay these drugs for half their monthly salaries. Thank you.
The other team likes to take preparation time for the round crossbar? No? Then I'd like you all to stand before our program. Thank you to everyone for picking up the microphones. Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
So I would like to ask my first question, which is that there's an obvious cause and effect fallacy in your constructive speech, which is that how can you prove that it's patent protection that caused the man named woman not able to buy drugs, but not other factors, for example, social and economic background?
Okay, so in our rebuttal, we proved two examples with statistics to prove that before and after there is a patent, the price of the life-saving drugs increased.
So
do you
we
need me
both
to
know
say
that the patent's usage is about 20 years, and in those 20 years, the economy is growing, and I think the economy could be another benefactor for the people's affordability to drugs and access
Okay,
to
so
drugs.
firstly, that is instantly changed when there is patent and there's no patent. The price decreases for a lot. Do you need me to restate that?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question for you is that what is the link between patents and the increase of the jobs?
Well, as we have mentioned in our Convention 1, which is that patents are extremely important for pharmaceutical companies, and if there's no patent, pharmaceutical company may go bankruptcy. And if the pharmaceutical companies go bankruptcy, people will lose jobs.
Okay,
And that's the link between
another
patent
question.
protection.
So
And I
another
want to
question
point
is.
out that-
So another question is that.
Please let me
how
finish
can
my
you prove
answer.
that?
Please let me finish my answer. Thank you. And I think it's also my turn to ask a question, which is that in our chart, we are showing that the biopharmaceutical industry, and it's not biopharmaceuticals industry. It's not biopharmaceutical companies. And I think it's our turn to ask you a question.
And we think
It's our turn to ask a question. Thank you.
Okay, so here is our question that relating
Except
to
for that, I think it's our turn to ask a question, which is that
relating to the first question we asked that how can you prove that it is the patent that helped these pharmaceutical companies to survive?
So it is very obviously because according to our research,
Do you have a statistic of the source of
Yes. Glyber is the first generic cure medicine that was permitted in Europe, and each injection costs 1.1 million euros to use in research and development. According to that, if pharmaceutical companies do not have patent protection to guarantee its profits, it would be bankruptcy.
why can't government
And
or charity organizations or the wealthy people pay for this?
So you mentioned about that patent drugs are monopolistic in the market, so that people will not buy generic drugs. But it's the property of patents that people are not allowed to manufacture other generic drugs.
Can you
And how is
answer
that?
questions?
And how is that related to our topic today?
What?
Because patent is what making it monopolistic, but it's not that patent make people think they are authority.
And I think you are trying.
Thank you.
How many time do we left? So we will use it up, which is 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
I was wrong.
judge ready, opponents ready, and I'm going to give my final focus speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this debate by showing our opponents and our judges why we definitely win this debate. First of all, I'd like to review on our opponent's contention, which is that first, patent protection sacrifice lives. However, first of all, they did not give us the link between patent protections and people dying because of they're not affordable to drugs in developing countries, and which means they failed to explain why patent protection is directly relative to people dying and sacrifices of life. And second of all, they mentioned a specific example named a man named Muhammad, and we also asked our opponent to explain the link between the unaccessibility of drugs for Muhammad and patent protections. Our opponents also failed to. And I would like to address again, which is that since it's a public forum debating it, simply using one person's case is not enough to back up the whole contention. And second of all, what our opponents doing in their third contention is that they're trying to appeal to common sense. And they're saying that people would not buy would not buy generic drugs when they're patented drugs. And however, I think that this is not relevant to our topic today. And besides, our opponents also mentioned that innovation is very important. However, this actually they help us to prove our contention, which is that without patent protections, pharmaceutical industry would not have enough money to innovate, and which is extremely important. And I'd like to review on our framework again, which is that we have two theories and numerous facts demonstrating why patents should be issued for life-saving medicines. Once we prove one to be valid, we'll win this debate. And our first contention is that patents are necessary to protect the pharmaceutical industry. And our opponent is not still given any fact back or response to this contention, which means it's still invalid. And second of all, our second contention is that the connection between patent protection and rise in drug prices is weak. And we have successfully proved that why it is weak. And those are all of the focus speech. Thank you, our fellow opponents and dear judges.
To use 2.5 minutes per time.
is everybody ready? Okay, so start. Dear Judge, here is our final focus, and I'm going to explain why we should win this round as process. Most importantly, our opponents did not attack our center attention that discrimination and misguiding effect on the patent on life-saving medicine causes, which confuse the patients that are really in debt and delay their right choice to the most affordable and most suitable drugs, which are unfair for the other companies that cannot even survive and make further research, which as a result is harmful to the human race. Because of discrimination, the small or generic companies cannot get dominant share in the pharmaceutical market. Secondly, according to the definition, patent is a document granted an inventor the exclusive right to make, use, or sell the drugs. We do not see this monopoly that in the company are committing to make any sense to the public welfare, nor can this situation benefit anyone by saving their lives, except for the greedy companies themselves. Since we proved that the majority of the people cannot afford the drugs with patents, then according to our framework, issuing patents will only have negative influence on the majority on a large scale. On the contrary, the profit of companies is the minority, so our impact is more influential and agree with our framework. Thirdly, we do give the link between the price, patent, and their life. Our example proved in a rebuttal successfully proved that drugs price increase immediately when they are issued patents. So our contention is proved, and our opponent's second and third contention cannot stand. Fourthly, about the survival. In the rebuttal that we prove the source of the company's income is not only the royalty from patents. If we have to sacrifice the public in order to satisfy the minority's money, that is insane, I have to say. When there could be other ways to protect the companies, as we said, such as letting other institutions to subsidize the companies, which can benefit the people and the companies as well. Also, I think the large proportion of the income in the United States as a proof of economic improvements only point out that the price is patented and drugs are very expensive. As the result, we think we should win this round. And thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to thank both teams for that debate and invite them to shake hands. Please give everyone another round of applause. Myself and the other judges will now retire to discuss what I'm sure will be quite a difficult decision.